basically it looks like the APFT, the Army Physical Fitness Test, they're looking to replace it with something called the ACRT, which is the Army Combat Readiness Test. Now, a lot of these articles, and again, I can't speak, I mean, this is literally the Army's website, so I would imagine, but it looks like they're not, it's not like they're adding this as an addition. It looks like they're like trying to like knock out the old standards altogether. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Zero Bunker. G and CJ here, and we're going to be getting into a conversation that I feel especially qualified to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So thanks, everybody, for joining in. I know you guys missed the last episode. We just kind of had to take a break, but we're back on.
Well, tell them about the coffee, man. It sounds like that's been a big thing.
We just launched it, man, for all you caffeine addicts. ZF just launched his new coffee line. We're not here to be the next coffee company. We just want to provide you some good quality shit. You try it out. If you don't like it, your money back guarantee, no questions asked. So go check it out. Yeah.
Apparently up at Zero headquarters, it smells nothing like just pure coffee up there.
Yeah.
Like
now it's just pure coffee. Hopefully in a year down the road, it'll be like pure like cocaine. So... maximize.
That's your ultimate goal, is like some sort of Scarface ending.
Yeah, Scarface profits. That'd be nice.
Well, typically guys here on the podcast, I mean, we always have great banter, but I think that G typically will lead the way because a lot of times we're talking about military history and stories of different hard fucks throughout the years. And, something that he is just really, really amazing at is providing those stories and getting that information out there. So I think a lot of times, you're kind of taking the lead, but this topic, I think I might actually be talking more today.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Well, so basically for some time now, the Army has been discussing changing up their physical fitness protocol. Now, for those of you guys that don't know, the Army's what they call the APFT, the Army Physical Fitness Test, has been around since like 1980, and it's the 2-minute push-ups, 2-minute sit-ups, and 2-mile run. Now that's, I mean, basically in the Marine Corps we have something similar. We do a 3-mile run, we got pull-ups, and then we've got, is it crunches or sit-up? Do they call it sit-ups or crunches?
I think crunches.
I think it's crunches. It's like 100, I think, or something like that.
It's just, it's more, so. Yeah. Definitely.
It's the Marines. They always have to, like, are they doing 2 miles? We're doing fucking 3.
Yeah, it's actually fun even at the range, like, I'm assuming this is before, like, ACOGs and all that shit.
Yeah.
Marines were actually shooting at, fucking 500 meters out, iron sights, while the Army was only 300 meters. So I don't know if they changed that, but...
it's always the dick measuring competition here in the military, so we've got to... Well, it basically for a long time now, and those of you that have been in the service, particularly in the Army, you probably heard at some time, they're going to change the physical fitness testing. And we even heard that in the Marine Corps. I even went through like a little practice...
with the fireman carry and the ammo cans and all that, right? Yeah, I literally just got out right before they implemented that, so...
I went through it, but it didn't count for anything. They just wanted us to try it, and we...
but did it work?
It was very tough. I think that, believe it or not, so there was a 800-meter sprint. So that's 2 laps around a track, right? And we did it in boots and utes. And dude, I'm not kidding, man. It jacked me up. Honestly, the hardest part about that, actually, I think it was effective as far as like, working you out or really exhausting you, is definitely a measure of fitness. And that's kind of one of the things I want to get into with this, because this is obviously way harder. I think the standards are definitely like, they're raising the bar, but I don't know, man. I think that sometimes we get in the weeds with, whether or not, like, I mean, basically they're trying to implement something that is more suited to military duty. That's going to mimic or get you more combat ready, or at least give them an idea of whether or not you're more combat ready or better for your MOS physically. And I think that's a tough thing, man, because, we're talking about, multiple MOSs. We're talking about like, how do you really specifically measure that? I mean, I don't know your thoughts on that, but it's like, I've always thought, the art in our case, it was the 3-mile run, and again, the pull-ups and all that. And I'm like, well, like what is that really measuring? But at the end of the day, if the goal is just, well, we're just trying to figure out if you're physically fit and there's just a standard of physical fitness, it doesn't really matter whether or not it's specific to the job. You know what I'm saying? Like you can increase intensity with multiple different modalities of exercise. We could do all kinds of shit, but it's like, well, here's the standard of what we're looking at. So I don't know what your thoughts are. Do you think that is the goal of the PT, should it be to see if somebody's more combat ready, or should it be like just making sure you're in shape?
So I personally feel that, and this is just from history, man. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to have standards, right? I think that having a PFT test to make sure you got to have a standard. So to have a PFT test just to make sure that everybody's physically fit, absolutely. To also believe that we also need to have a step up for like maybe like a combat ready PFT, like an advanced level. Sure. But everybody says like the Marine Corps, everybody's a rifleman, right? But there's also been plenty of instances where you've had cooks and you've had admin guys, you've had guys that got thrown into the combat. Maybe not recently, but I think that if it allows it to, at the end of the day, the realistic side of it is that they're going to have a standard PFT for everybody because we need to have it. You can't have fat bodies running around. But then you're going to have like a more intensive PFT for combat ready units, just like how you have the Q course for the SF guys and Ranger School and MARSOC and all of that. Like you go through these stringent selection processes, right? Physically and mentally. Yeah. So you can, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, and you can be part of that.
Yeah. And that absolutely makes sense, you know, to make it kind of MOS specific. And that's actually one of the downfalls, or at least the you know, particular, like, it's like if we had everybody go through buds or something, you know what I mean? Like there's a reason why.
What I will say though, I think that just running crunches and pull-ups and all of that, I think that it's too bare. You know what I mean?
I agree with you 100%. Well,
but then you get the balance that if you weed too many people out, you know, if you make the what's it called, like the standards like too high, now the military is dwindling, right? So it's kind of having that balance. But I don't think it's enough just to be able to run and do PFTs and to like do push-ups and pull-ups or whatever, you know. So
well, it looks like finally, guys, the Army's kind of putting their foot down anyway. And now I'm gonna sift through several different articles. Like this first one that I'm looking at right here was Army.mil. Now this is actually from September 2017. Now there are even more recent ones. I think this Army Times here was from July 9th, 2018. But you know, basically it looks like the APFT, the Army Physical Fitness Test, they're looking to replace it with something called the ACRT, which is the Army Combat Readiness Test. Now, a lot of these articles, and again, I can't speak, I mean, this is literally the Army's website, so I would imagine, but it looks like it's not like they're adding this as an addition. It looks like they're like trying to like knock out the old standards altogether and then put this in its place. Now, just to kind of give you guys some backgrounds, and we'll probably provide some links or something down below if you're on YouTube or wherever. But
I'd be interested to see the guys that are currently in the Army right now. Like, I wish, you know, we could like.
There's a lot of people butthurt. Like, there's been people that have made videos and stuff about it. And like, this seems like a controversial topic. As a matter of fact, I had discussed this on another social media platform, and I had some people that were like, "Yeah, man, it's, you know, I don't know. There's been a little bit of backlash, but." And I think there's pros and cons. I think that there's some legitimate arguments on both sides. But long story short, getting rid of the 2-2-2, the 2-mile run, 2-minute pull-up or push-ups, and 2 minutes of crunches, they're basically replacing it with 6 events. Now, one of those events is the 2-mile run. So they're not getting rid of that. And that was like one of the biggest criticisms. Even people in the Army, they were like, well, how does a 2-mile run make sense for what we do? Right? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, I had one experience, and my guys will tell you, where we had to run back under fire for like 2 miles. You know what I mean?
Fuck. So
seriously, yeah. We're outside of the city of Ramadi, and back in those days, it was, you know, back in like 06 and 07, it was extremely deadly just to be out during the day. So we pushed out, we did our shit, but we were still out by sunrise. And literally, as we were coming back, our entire company got ambushed. And next thing you know, we ended up calling the Ramadi Mile just because, like, we're really hauling ass under fire up until we got to where we needed to be. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you got to have situations. I mean, look at guys in Afghanistan. I mean, you know.
Were you, like, consistently running, or was it like a touch and go?
So it was kind of like touch and go and sprints, and you had to keep moving, you know what I mean? But luckily, we had the cover of buildings, right? But then you got guys who are like in Afghanistan, and I've never been to Afghanistan, but I can only imagine that you don't have too much cover over there, you know?
Yeah, and so that's where in some of that, I'm gonna come back to that because so the difference between like the long distance runs versus the touch and goes, and like that's where we start to get in the weeds with some of this. And as a fitness professional, I kind of want to speak to what I think some of the misconception is around, you know, just functional training or like training for an event, and how it kind of gets lost in translation. But, you know, so they kept the 2 mile run, and that was, again, like one of the things that other people were criticizing, but they decided to keep that one around. And what they've added is kind of interesting. Now, and I want to give like my explanation on why I think that these are added and why I think it's a good thing, but I think some of the explanations that they give are a little bit silly. So the first off is a deadlift. It's basically a maximum effort deadlift, and it's using one of those trap bars, them diamond bars. You know
Yeah.
You use those with Alex, man?
Once, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they'll make you feel like super fucking strong because you can do more than like the bar in front of you.
Right.
And G is notoriously that the deadlift was the one exercise
that I just could not get it right. Yeah,
he was the most frustrating client I ever had.
But then it's like, you know, it crammed in. So
the deadlift, this is going to be what it looks like is the proposed weight range is between 120 to up to 420 pounds, and this is a 3 rep max effort. So I don't know exactly how it's going to work. It doesn't really fully explain it, but it looks like you're doing 3 reps, then you're just going to build up weight. And I'm assuming you're trying to get to the top end, which is 420. Now that's a solid lift. I mean, it's not uncommon in the fitness world for somebody to be able to do 420, especially on a trap bar, but it's still challenging. Not just any jamoke is going to be able to like max that thing out.
Right.
And so that's the first one. And what they're saying is the event can simulate picking up ammunition boxes, a wounded battle buddy, duffel bags, and heavy equipment. Now, I get it, and I guess the Army does have to provide like a specific explanation. But at the end of the day, it's a measure of strength. We're looking at force output here, and especially in a 3 rep range, which I thought was a good idea. Instead of doing a max effort like a 1 rep, which is going to get people fucking hurt, even though 3 reps I don't think is like that much different, it's better. But it's a way to measure strength. I mean, let's take the push-ups, for example. People are like, well, that's a strength measure. No, it's not. It's a muscular endurance measure, which is different, right? It's how long your muscles can go under tension versus how much force in like that you can actually produce.
Right.
So I think it's cool to see the strength component, but I think that, you know, is picking up a battle buddy is going to be substantially different than picking up a trap bar.
Oh yeah.
And so whether or not I think these specifics are like ammo boxes, it's like, well, 420 pounds of ammo boxes, man, that's a motherfucker. I mean, again, I get it. We're measuring strength, but I think some of the specifics are a little silly. So I don't know. Do you with the deadlift?
Yeah. I mean, it's better than, I agree with the whole push-up thing. I think, you got to be strong, man.
Sure.
So,
yeah, and I mean the good thing about a deadlift is
push-ups build strength. Don't get me wrong, but I think you're right. It if you're trying to drag somebody and you have to pick that motherfucker up, man, and with kit and gear and all that, he's gonna weigh a lot. So
right, and I mean at least the deadlift is a primal movement, and it's. Yeah. Again, it's much different. Like if I need to pick G up and it's a 1 rep, like get him up now, it's different training that way than doing something where I'm doing high reps of something. Like it's not going to translate.
Right.
The next one is the standing power throw, and this is where soldiers are going to toss a 10-pound medicine ball backwards as far as possible, and they're going to measure that. And it's so basically they're throwing it as far as they can. Right now. This one, they claim it says soldiers, it shows the power needed to lift themselves or a fellow soldier up over an obstacle in a rapidly across uneven terrain. So I guess it's, they'll be in the grass when they throw this, and it's supposed to simulate, do I need to like get you up over a wall or something like that? Again, whether or not that specifically translates, I don't know. But
are you going to throw a person... Because you weigh 10 pounds?
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, if they allow females in combat.
Yeah, I mean, 10, yeah, but I don't know what a 10-pound ball is going to do.
No.
I just don't get that.
Yeah.
Why would you want to throw somebody over a wall? You know, again, this is my opinion. Is I'm sure there are other ways of doing shit.
Yeah, no, I agree. And here's where I will give it credit. Okay, so let's look at like the difference between the deadlift and this power throw. Okay, so a deadlift is a measure of absolute force production. So it's like how much I can lift in a single or 3 reps. Now, what throwing something does is that basically is a measure of power because you're reducing the deceleration. Like when you stand up with the deadlift, you start to slow down when you get to the top. Now, if you were to say stand up with that bar and jump in the air, then that's different because you're having to actually apply speed. So it's force times velocity. Now, what's in athletic performance, the reason we would measure that would be like a basketball player working on a vertical jump, they need to be working explosively, right? And this is power is different. So I think it is cool that they took into account what they didn't do before, which was number 1, strength, and number 2, power. So it is cool. Now, whether or not these are the ideal exercises that I would choose, I mean, the deadlift's okay. I think the ball, like you said, 10 pounds. I mean, what the fuck, dude? Now, what I will say to justify this a little bit, I don't know if it is justification. You're going to love this. This is supposed to be allegedly a gender, everybody neutral. Everybody does the same shit.
Should be. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's fucking cool.
Yeah.
But that might be maybe why I don't know, maybe it's lighter because of that. I don't know. Which I guess that's same. We're back in the same boat, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. So the next one is going to be T push-ups. In this event, the soldiers are going to start in a prone position and do a traditional push-up. But when they go down, they have to kick their arms outward to their side and like laying your chest completely on the ground, and then bring them back and go through the push-up. So it's like a harder version of push-up.
I say bench press at this point.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I'll actually explain why I think the bench press might not be a great idea, and I also want to talk about here in a second about the deadlifts and why that might not be a good idea economically. But look, here's what I think about this. If you're gonna have push-ups, I like this because let's face it, dude. You ever seen anybody do one of these fucking push-up tests?
No.
It's like they're just flailing on the fucking ground, like going at using all this moment. It's ridiculous. I saw my buddy Amin, who was not in the service. He won a push-up test at an event one time, and he looked like a fucking idiot, dude. Just going real fast, like the way I am on Alex's mom.
It's like pull-ups and CrossFitting. I mean, it's
exactly
the same thing. Sorry to, but it is true.
Right, but here's the deal is that in Marine Corps we do pull-ups, but we have to come from a dead arm hang. Each one has to be fully extended dead arm hang. It's very hard to produce momentum that way. They're very strict. Now in the Army, it was harder to measure or coach like whether or not the reps were good in the push-up. You know what I'm saying? So I think at least this way, it makes it dumbass proof. Like you really can't fuck this up. So that's that. Okay. I don't know. I think if you're going to have it. Now this one's interesting. This is one I would not want to do. I think this is going to be a motherfucker. Sprint, drag, carry. All right.
That's realistic though.
It is. Yeah, no, this is the most realistic one. This is my favorite one, but this is the one that I think is going to like separate the men from the boys, you know? All right. So as they dash 25 meters, 5 times up and down a lane, soldiers will perform sprints, drag a sled weighing 90 pounds, and then hand carry 40-pound kettlebell weights. This simulates pulling a battle buddy out of harm's way, moving quickly to take cover, and carrying ammunition to a fighting position or a vehicle. Yeah,
I completely agree with that one. That's actually pretty realistic. I mean, it is.
Now, what I'm curious about, so it says carry. Oh, no, it does say carry. Dude, so the 90-pound sled, I mean, 90 pounds is no joke, right? That's two 45-pound plates, and you're dragging that. Depending on how the grass is and stuff, that's going to change it. And they're also in their PT gear, so go fasters and freaking.
Well, the other thing too, I think that it should be done with full kit gear if you're going to be in combat.
Yeah, I mean they're calling it the combat fitness test. So
yeah, but if you're going to be like in skivvies and sneakers, man, I mean that kind of defeats the whole point.
Yeah, a glow belt.
Yeah, it just defeats the whole point. You got to do it with full battle rattle, man. You know, carry 6 to 8 mags and sappies and all that shit.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, the thing is, we are trying to, if we're trying to measure specifically what you're going to be able to perform in your, at your job, then basically, like, you're going to not be dressed in PT gear, or I wouldn't imagine so. Well, here's what's crazy to me about that one though, dude. So the 90-pound sled's one thing. 40-pound kettlebells. That's 80 pounds. Use 2 40s in each hand. Like, I think for like smaller folks, especially the ladies, that's a beast, man. I mean, no, it can be done, you know, but like,
don't be in combat. Shit. But then, you know, but the other thing,
this is for everybody.
Right. But the other thing you gotta also, you know, factor in is also your adrenaline, man. I mean, your adrenaline, once you're in it,
oh yeah,
in combat, I mean, you're fucking lifting cars if you got to, you know, so.
Hell yeah.
But it also weed a lot of motherfuckers out that don't need to be there. They don't need to be in the army or the military at all.
Sure.
It ain't for everybody. Sorry, you know.
No, I agree. Now the next one is called a leg tuck. This one's also going to be pretty difficult, but it looks like the only explanation I can give you with this one is they wanted some sort of core movement, and the sit-ups just were not cutting it, and so this is a more challenging version of like a crunch or a sit-up. And so this is basically, if you guys are familiar with like toes to bar, knees to elbow, similar to a pull-up, soldiers lift their legs up and down to touch their knees to their thighs, or knees or thighs to their elbows as many times as they can. So
Damn.
yeah, so you know, you got to
do that with my dick. But
you got to hang from the pull-up bar, and you're basically, you know, and so you know, right off the bat, I mean, let's be honest, like these are all CrossFit type exercise. Like these are all things we would see in a CrossFit event.
Sure. Well, I think also, you know, the whole changing the standards. I mean, we are evolving. I mean, the wars have also changed. I mean, think about if we were still fighting, you know, Iraq and Afghanistan with like M1 Garands, you know what I mean? I mean, you know, we're evolving just how we evolve with technology and weaponry and tactics and the battlefields. We also got to evolve with, you know, with the fitness.
Well,
absolutely.
Well, that's why I think these testing should just be a remote control, working a drone.
Yeah. Eventually they'll get to that, man, but you'll still always going to need the guy who's going to put a fucking bayonet in somebody's face.
You know, they literally have, like, they call them gyms for like esports now. Like people go, you go to like a place to get better at your fucking playing e-basketball.
Oh, wow.
Shit, yeah.
Jeez, man.
Yeah, that's wild. And then last event is 2 mile run again. So we're stuck with that. But test scoring, it says 100 points for each event. So a total of 600 would be the opportunity that you have. I don't know exactly how that score, like how you break that down with each of these events. You know, I guess, you know, I guess overall, like, what are your thoughts overall, man? Is this a good thing to replace the old one? Does it matter?
I think that, yes, I think that if you're going to up the standards, you're also going to have a better quality soldier, in my opinion. Okay. Bottom line. I think that, you know, you can only go so far with just a few pull-ups and push-ups. And I mean, there's plenty of fat motherfuckers and people that are completely out of shape, and they still pass a 2 mile pull up and push up and all that shit, you know what I mean? But then it goes down to, like, you know, the NCO level and all the other stuff to properly discipline everybody and make sure everybody's on track. But I think having a PFT that's more challenging, that I think a lot of these things actually apply to the real world, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like the 2 mile run. I'm sure there are cases where you got to run to a fucking LZ. I'm sure there are cases that, what if you're by yourself and the enemy's trying to fucking capture you? Well, you better fucking run, you know? So I think all these little things about firemen carrying people and the pull-ups and the dragging and all the other shit, dude, I think actually I favor that because, again, it does put you in a, you know, in a real situation, right? It trains you for that. I mean, I always say that in war, you can train physically as much as you want, and also mentally. But then once you're there, though, it's other things kick in. You know what I mean? There's some things you cannot train for. I think your body you can train for.
Well,
and we're not even talking about. It's not like they added like saying, okay, we got to climb mountains and swim and do like an entire day event. I mean, I think that this should be standard. I mean, I know there's plenty of other armies in the world who have much tougher PFTs than this. So
yeah,
let's consider that.
Well, I think first things first is I agree. I agree for the most part with you 100%. Like I think that just raising the physical standards, like just making it more difficult, raising the bar in general, in my opinion, is a fucking amazing thing. I think it was too easy. Like the entry level's too easy. And so I think just asking more from people physically is a good thing.
Sure.
Now, where I think that I can't fully side is the idea that this is so practical to like the real life of being a soldier in combat. Now, I think it's a great attempt at it. I think that it's way better than what they were doing for it. But I think that the problem is, being a fitness expert for so long, I know that functionality and specificity is more specific than you think. Like, just standing, let's say just standing on a balance ball in the gym, right? You're getting real good at fucking standing on that balance ball. That doesn't mean that you can stand on a fucking skateboard and not fall off. Believe it or not, like even like little differences of just training for, like, you can be really good at deadlifting and really bad at picking up somebody, even if that person weighs less. Now, I think it's a way to measure strength, and I agree with that. And so I'm with you. I think that trying to sell it like, oh, this is going to make you better in combat, though, I have a hard time with that. I think that all we need to know, are you strong? Do you have enough endurance? Cool. You know what I mean? Like, from there, the only way that you're going to get good at that job is just practicing that job.
Well, yeah, well, I get what you're saying. I think what I'm saying is that they're actually introducing these things to actually kind of showcase what combat can be like. I don't think that just doing this new PFT is going to make you combat ready. You know, I'm not saying that, but I think it puts a glimpse on, like, you know, what it's like to carry ammunition under fire, what it's like to carry somebody that's dying, you know, up off of a wall, whatever. It puts them, you know, then you get specific MOSs that, yes, they need to constantly train because that's their job. Obviously, a guy who's an admin or a cook, he's not going to have to go through that. But just like anything else, it could happen that that cook or that admin guy could be in a situation and training kicks in and it's like, fuck, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Can that person, because here's the deal, like, can that person, you know, become a combat ready soldier, or can he, you know, fight if he needs to save his buddies, even though that's not his main job, right? Yeah. That's what they're saying, like, you know, the Marine Corps, everybody's a rifleman. And you know, I guess in a way it is true, because if you look at all the past wars, like, motherfuckers, you had cooks that went out there, you had dentists that went out there and did shit, you know what I mean? So
yeah. I mean, basically, like, almost everybody I deployed with I was one of the only ones that actually did my job, my MOS. Almost everybody else, we ended up like truck drivers and all kinds of shit, man.
Right, yeah, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, also, you know, it just depends on the needs and when you get there. But I think being physically fit to at least do the basics of what is required in a combat situation, which is to save your life, save your guy's life, to hold a position or whatever, you know what I mean?
No, I absolutely hear you, man. But here's the thing, and this is something that I didn't even really see it from this perspective, but there's this website, I'm not sure if you're familiar, it's Modern War Institute, usma.edu. So they do an incredible article here. This is May 17, 2018 when this was published, but they basically are breaking down, says the good and the bad of the Army's new physical fitness test. Now, I'm just going to run through a couple of these things that I didn't really even think about, but check this out, all right? Beyond consuming more time, the ACRT transition is going to be expensive. A battalion set of equipment, or 10 ACRT sets, is estimated at $12,000, with hundreds of battalions across the Army, combined with geographical disbursement units like the more than 1,100 ROTC campus locations, 1,600 recruiting stations, or U.S. Army personnel stations in embassy worldwide. So it says, let's kind of move past this. That's a big budget pill to swallow after almost 4 decades of nearly cost-free physical fitness assessment. That also doesn't address associated costs of equipment replacement over time, etc. So I don't know what you think about that, man, about, like, because I didn't even consider, I mean, logistically, like, or economically, the cost of it is definitely severe.
Well, because like the dumbbells and like the kettlebells and all that shit. Yeah,
kettlebells. And in that, you know, you guys think, well, I'll just get on Craigslist or shit like that. But think about, like, the sheer size of the Army. And there's probably going to have to be standards, I'm assuming. So, like, they're going to be buying bulk.
Well, I think that the question is what does the Army want at the end of the day? Do you want to save money, or do you want to save lives? I mean, which one is it?
Yeah, sure. And so I'm all for investing into, I think in the long term, I think it's definitely better to invest into it.
We waste money on fucking the F-35 jet, and we spend billions on it, and the still doesn't fly. So
right.
I think if we could spend money on dumbbells or, whatever, pull-ups, racks and shit, like, should go for it. And besides, the Army's got like the biggest budget out of everybody anyway, so I don't know what they're complaining about.
Right. No, for sure. Let's let's see here. There's a couple of other interesting ones though. So like outside of the cost though, let's see. It says here, so after years of studying experimentation, the new 6 2-mile run, where's it at? The APFT, okay, so here it goes. A physical, APFT, a physical fitness test that has been in use for almost 40 years. So why is the Army doing it? The general argument against the APFT is that it focuses on muscular and aerobic endurance, and its events bear little resemblance to combat. So the ACRT, of course, is supposed to fix all that. All right, so the ACRT, for example, is comparable much more to intensive, more time intensive than the APFT. So that's the one that I found interesting. This is what I was looking for. So outside of cost, each set of equipment allows approximately 5 soldiers to complete the full 6-event ACRT in 75 minutes. In an infantry battalion with 10 sets of equipment and 800 soldiers, completing the ACRT will take 16 days. That's 3 weeks, 3 work weeks. Mm-hmm. So just the hours alone, man. What do you? I mean, how do you feel about that one? Because I think that's substantial. Now, granted, look, I was like cleaning radios and like playing fuck games to fill time half the time. So like I still think it's worth it. But that's something I didn't even consider was like just the sheer amount of time.
To do what, the actual PT?
Yeah. So basically, it's saying that it's allotted 75 minutes per each group for the 6 events, and that when you compare that to some of these infantry battalions, it literally would take 3 weeks of work to do it.
Wake up earlier, shit. I mean, again, like I said, if training is training, I mean, it's. What else can if you're a grunt or whatever, if you're not fucking playing Xbox, you're fucking training, you're doing physical shit, you're going to the range, you're humping. I mean, if anything, it just cuts into the downtime of things, So
yeah.
And again, it all goes down. I mean, I think in increasing the physical stamina and the physical standards, it's gonna do good things. It's gonna weed people out that don't need to be there. It's gonna get people that, again, prepared for real life shit.
Right.
So.
Well, and the third argument that they make here is just that the Army's going to have to train trainers. Now, again, I think this is a good thing. I think we even have like Semper Fit programs, things like that in Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think training trainers I think you should have, there's no reason you shouldn't have trainers.
You don't have to train trainers. You fucking outside contract. Bottom line, you do private contract. It's way cheaper.
That's actually a good idea.
You don't have to, I mean, they do that for all the times. The ISMITs, they do that for ranges, they do that for all kinds of shit. They, even in Iraq, I mean, it was like a shit ton of contractors.
Yeah.
A lot of people would argue that it's like contractors take away from the jobs in the military, but I think they actually help support the military in general. So if you need trainers, I'm sure they can get a private contract out there. It'll be a lot cheaper than actually wasting the time training a guy to be a trainer. So.
Well, this is one comparison. This goes back to the money side of it, and I want you to like see it from this perspective and tell me what you think about this. So you remember how I was saying that specificity is more specific than we think. So it's like you're trying to replicate, say, with a deadlift, picking up your buddy. But picking up your buddy is, of course, more literally specific. So training exactly the way you would do combat is really obviously the way. But if we, because their whole quote here is that this is supposed to emulate combat, so it's a hard sell for me on that. Now, whether or not it's a harder physical fitness test, yeah, but this is something that's interesting. It's an interesting point. So all this money that they're going to spend for kettlebells, trap bars, all that stuff, right? And again, we say it's a good investment, but what if rather than purchasing kettlebells, we basically do things that are literally like representations of ammo cans or full body dummies or like stuff that is more specific to combat? Like, couldn't we allot that money versus something that like a traditional weightlifting equipment? You know what I mean? So I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about that one? Because I mean, obviously, like it's we can go find kettlebells. That's not complicated, I guess. But it's like if we're going to go ahead and spend money, and we know the military is probably going to overspend. Like if they're getting kettlebells, it's probably going to be like the high end fucking like shit. It's
right.
So do you think it'd be better to get like weighted ammo cans and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, you got to work with what you got, man. I mean, it's kind of like, working out overseas. A lot of guys, you don't have, I've seen guys put fucking broomsticks in with sandbags and water cases and all that shit. You know what I mean? To simulate, to do their bench pressing. So
Yeah.
I think that there are plenty of shit lying around that can be used to actually simulate the same thing. You don't need to have kettlebells. You know what I mean? Like, get some ammo cans. Yeah, fill that shit with concrete. Done. Bottom line.
Yeah. Well, my final kind of like takeaway on this is that I think that it's good that they're raising the standards with physical fitness. I think that, here's my 2 cents is like, you don't have to sell it as like, oh, this is to emulate combat. I think that just by saying, look, we have higher physical fitness standards. We want to measure strength, power, endurance, all these things. That's great. I don't think that you have to say, well, the deadlift is because of this. Now, again, we're just kind of getting into the weeds, but I think that's why
they got to give a reasoning, because otherwise they're like, well, why are we doing this? You know what I mean? So they got to come up with something.
Yeah. Well, and I think that if you look at the old fitness test, though, it's like, they weren't trying to say that, oh, it's because you need to be better in combat. They're just saying you just need to be physically fit. That's part of this fucking job. You know what I mean? And I think that's, whether you're firefighter, police officer, whatever, I'm like, I think that those jobs, I think it is important to have that. But it's like, just say like, hey, our standards for physical fitness, like you can't just be somebody that can do some fucking sit-ups anymore. We have higher expectations.
Yeah.
You need to be more of a...
Absolutely. I mean, again, we're evolving with all kinds of stuff, and I think the physical part of it needs to evolve as well. So.
Now, do you think that this gets the Army a step closer to being as badass as Marines?
They can try, but I think no. But I mean, all shit aside, I mean, even the Marine Corps changed, their entire PT standards, and again, I think they're right. I forget what it's called now, like combat PFT or something.
I think it's they still have the pull-ups and all that, but it's they're 2 separate things.
That I didn't know. I thought they literally incorporated. Okay, here's a more valid point, right?
Sure.
So now we're talking about changing one PFT test. If the Marine Corps, if that's true, then we're doing both. I mean, if that works, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's doable.
Right.
But again, I think, when the Marine Corps put it out there, they were like, you got to do the ammo boxes, you got to carry the dummies, you got to do all that shit. I think that it's suitable for the lessons that we learned in Iraq and Afghanistan in the last 10 years, because it makes me wonder how many situations have happened that have inhibited people or soldiers or Marines to do their jobs because maybe they weren't physically fit for it.
Now, one thing that I think is kind of interesting to think about. So we talk about in combat, like let's say, we talked about this on our women in combat role, but the standards are the standards. So it's like, okay, it don't matter your height, weight, gender, whatever the fuck it is. Like, here's the bar you got to fucking get to. Now, I get that because the job is the job, and the job isn't going to like change because because you need a fucking mulligan. With that being said, now let's talk about sports really quick, because if you were to go to a powerlifting event and what are you, 180 pounds?
Right.
Okay, so 5'9", 180 pounds, and they expected you to compete next to the guy that's 300 pounds and like lift the same weight as him, you'd be like, man, that's kind of fucked up, right?
Right.
And it is, because relative strength has to do with different physical capabilities. Now, this kind of testing, not only is it looking at, or allegedly looking at, whether or not you're fit to be in the military or be in combat, but it also affects, like, the scoring itself affects your rank and different stuff. So it's like, if all across the board we're all trying to lift the same amount of like, is it reasonable that this big motherfucker, he outlifted me on the deadlift? But I guess then again, the big motherfucker might have a harder time with some of the other stuff. So maybe it weighs it all self out, but like, you see the flaws that I know what I mean?
I don't think it's a flaw. I think either you're cut to be in there or you're not. Bottom line, if you can't lift that, you shouldn't be in the military. If you can't do this, it's not like saying, okay, well, you weigh this much, so you're going to do this. You weigh this. I mean, combat is not going to tell you, I picked that guy up because he weighs 100 pounds, and you picked that guy because he weighs 200 pounds.
Yeah, but if you're talking about, let's say that you and another,
because you're talking about competing, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, well, no, but like, say you're competing for whoever's going to make sergeant or whatever, right? So like, you're trying to make this cutting score, and the guy next to you
but here's the deal. But it's not just basically based on the physical fitness aspect of things. I mean, if you're looking at ranks, you're looking there are plenty of things. I mean, a guy cannot get sergeant because the guy doesn't like you. I mean, there are plenty of things that can happen.
Yeah.
But I'm literally talking about, there needs to be a standard. If you can't meet it, then you shouldn't be part of it.
Yeah.
Which is bottom line. And because, again, you can't say the military is not for everybody. The military is not for you know, every person wants to be a patriot. It's, you got to have standards. I mean, it's kind of like me saying, I want to be a doctor, but I don't want to go to school for it, so I should just be a doctor anyways. Like, nah, it's if I don't meet the standards.
That's a scary fucking thought,
right?
Man.
If I don't meet the standards, I shouldn't be that. Same thing with the military. If you can't hack it, if you can't hump, if you can't carry ammo, if you can't carry a person, dude, then what are you good for?
Yeah, no, look, I'm with you on that. I think that's valid.
But I don't think it's a flaw.
Sure.
Well, you know,
I think it's valid. I think that the only thing that is bothersome to me, and you're right, there's a lot more things that go into making rank and just working your way up. But I think that it's a difficult sell to me, knowing that, you know, somebody that was naturally a smaller individual, you know, that relative to their body weight or something, they were really fucking strong, but like they're never going to be able to get that 420 or something based off of whatever physical limitations. I think that, you know what? Well, if your physical limitations keep you back from being more combat ready, then you shouldn't have the job, but should it keep you back from making sergeant? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And not that it would.
Well, I mean, but it's like, it's like a roller coaster, right? I mean, if you got to be this high to get on the ride, if you're a midget, what are you going to do? Are they going to shut down are they going to create a special roller coaster for the guy? No. I mean,
right.
That's what I'm saying. I think this is like a super extreme, like, case and example. I think that, I mean, I've seen short people and tall people and skinny people lift way more than guys who are just as big. So I think finding a good balance and a median, I don't think it has to be extreme. But I think that once the centers is set, that's it. You know what I mean? If you're short, you can make that great. If you're tall, you can make that great. It's like saying I can't go to the basketball team because I'm not fucking 5'8" or 6 feet high.
Right. But and I think that we're talking about the same thing, you know. But it's like, let's say to make sergeant though, that's a broad range of MOSs and situations, right? So like you had mentioned that women in the military have a very strong place in the military, but it may not be in a combat role because of physical limitations, right? Well, they also have to make sergeant in that same MOS that they don't need the physical requirements that the man does in a combat role, but they still need to make a cutting score, and all the PT, whether it's that dude or her, are all the same.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. But right now, we're not talking about an enhanced combat PT. We're talking about a standardized PT. We're talking about a standardized thing, right? Which they're saying that the 2 mile run, the 2-2-2 doesn't cut it. Okay, I agree with that, right? And if it's going to affect people's jobs, I get it. So we'll train harder, or I don't. And if that puts a limitation on you, then maybe you should. It's not for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think at the very least, I don't know how they're going to score it, but I think that they should at least consider relative strength and not just absolute strength.
Well, it's like the body weight thing, right?
Body weight to weight lifted, I think should be considered.
No. I'm talking about like the tape measuring shit, right? Where it's same thing.
Like
I was 5'8", 180 or 185 because I was still lifting, but I was considered fat. Right, because the standard was still from like the 1950s.
You were a little soft.
No, I'm serious, dude. Like it was like, then I can't remember. Then they told me like the standards were like literally still from the 1950s. I mean, the body evolved, right? So how do you consider that? Like the guy that's 300 pounds, man, but he's fucking strong as an ox, dude. He can run, he can do that. He's still considered overweight. Yeah,
so that's the BMI chart, the body mass index, considers height and weight and tries to classify you as normal, overweight, underweight, etc. But the military, they take it a step further, and they will quote unquote test body fat percentage or at least body composition, but they do it with tape measure, which is probably one of the most inconsistent, worst ways to do it. I mean, it's like, okay, this guy's arms are X amount around. Well, that doesn't mean it's body fat. I mean, how the fuck do you know what his arm is made up of?
Right.
And people are built so uniquely as well. It's I have a naturally smaller waist than the average person, but that doesn't mean like I'm leaner than Alex. It's just he has a blockier waist, and still, body fat percentage is probably lower than mine. So
yeah, absolutely, man. So I don't know. Like I said, good luck to all you motherfuckers if this shit happens, man, and train hard for it, man. That's all I can say.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Biggest piece of advice I could tell you is to basically study these events and train specifically for the events. Literally going out and throwing a medicine ball over your head or trying, the deadlifts. And I wouldn't even necessarily be traditionally deadlifting. I would be deadlifting with the trap bar in the gym and practicing for the event. You know, that's just the best way that you can actually get efficient at it. And I would even think about the consideration of the order of operations, because by the time you get to that 2 mile run, you might be fucked up and you weren't considering that.
Yeah, absolutely. But here's the other thing too, is super important. It's up to the, you know, it's up to the chain of command and leadership to make sure that everybody is physically fit and prepared, you know? So, NCOs and up, and, you know, it's always going to be their role to make sure that they can, you know, that their men are up to standards. So
yeah, and I think this definitely does give a higher standard, and it definitely requires more of the soldiers. I would like to hope that other branches of the military, I know the Marine Corps is making steps towards this as well, but you know, other branches should be doing the same thing, because the fact of the matter is like, just because this motherfucker can run consistent 6-minute miles for 5 miles doesn't necessarily mean that he's more fit than the guy next to him. So I think that diversifying the events, you know, we've got a run, we've got a strength, we've got a power, we've got a core. It kind of like pokes holes in each individual, and it tries to find out if you're more well-rounded in shape. So for that, like you know, I'm all for it. And honestly, like, it's 2018, guys. Fucking CrossFit and different diversity of training and knowledge has been around for a long time. So fact is, like, why the fuck did this take so long, man? Like, that's my only question. I know it's hurry up and wait in the military, but god damn, man, this is a long time coming.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So
all right,
get out there and train.
Cool, guys. Well, I guess that's going to be it for today's episode. Do you have any shout-out? What can they expect at Zero Foxtrot? Do you want to send them over for just coffee and shit, or what else you got?
Well, I don't want to spoil it, man, but we got something for all you gamers out there.
Oh, wow.
That's all I'm going to say.
Do I get to see it?
Well, I think you know what it is.
But is there a...
No, I haven't. It's not completed yet.
Oh, okay.
But we got something out there for all you guys. It'll bring back a lot of good memories.
So so that's speaking to even the civilians out there that are amazing at Call of Duty.
Yeah, no, it's not a Call of Duty thing. It's got nothing to do with Call of Duty. I promise you that.
Hey, those are the motherfuckers. They know like weapons and military terms better than I do. They're on their fucking heads.
I was actually watching a movie, Falling Down, old school movie, and this guy had his rocket launcher and he didn't know how to use it. And the kid is like, let me see that. And he's like, yeah, press the button and do the sights. He's like, how the fuck you know there's like video games, you know? I was like, wow.
You're just fucking right in their fucking basement, you know, log train. This is Wolverine.
Man, shit gets serious, man. You know? So, it's actually, dude, I was going to add this real quick. It was actually pretty interesting. I was reading like completely random. This is like completely random, man, but I just wanted to share because I thought it was badass. So back like in World War II or whatever, it was actually customary for like airport officials like TSA to actually ask the question, are you carrying any human body parts or skulls or bones? Because it was so fucking, it was like so prominent, you know what I mean? I actually read that. I was like, man, that's fucking badass.
I was going to suggest to you, I thought you would appreciate this, that for the Marine Corps physical fitness test, you stack bodies.
See, there you go, man. It's like build a wall.
Right.
You know, learn how to
Can
do
you imagine that? You have to build one of those fucking walls like that John Stryker Meyer talks about.
John knows. He knows. Yeah. So, but yeah, man.
All right.
Cool.
Be sure to subscribe, guys, or stay tuned at whatever platform you'd like to absorb your podcast at. And we'll be back for another one next week. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Stay zero, guys.